Picture this. The wind is howling across the desolate landscape of northern Britannia. You're a Roman soldier, thousands of miles from home, and you haven't seen the sun in weeks. A damp, relentless cold seeps through your tent, your cloak, and right into your bones. Or maybe you're a kid, huddled with your family in a cramped top-floor apartment in Rome itself. The stone walls feel like ice, and the only heat comes from a sputtering bowl of charcoal that fills the air with a choking haze. There are no glass windows, just wooden shutters that do nothing to stop the drafts snaking through every crack. When we think of ancient Rome, we picture gleaming marble, sun-drenched villas, and legions marching under a Mediterranean sky. But that's not the whole story. The Roman Empire was immense, stretching from scorching deserts to fog-shrouded forests and the wind-swept frontiers of Hadrian's Wall. And when winter came, it wasn't a season of cozy comfort. It was a brutal, relentless battle for survival. So how did the average person, the farmer, the soldier, the mother trying to keep her family alive endure the cold? How did you survive when your home was basically a stone refrigerator and central heating was a fantasy reserved for the 1%? The answer is a stunning testament to human ingenuity. For millions of ordinary people, winter was a war fought not with swords, but with layers of wool. The perilous glow of a portable fire and a grim determination to just see the spring. This is the forgotten story of their struggle. The Roman art of not freezing to death. The sheer scale of the Roman Empire meant it had a wild diversity of climates, that popular image of a warm Mediterranean world. It's dangerously incomplete. Sure, Italy had mild winters, but the northern provinces were a different story. In places like Gaul, Germania, and Britain, winter meant deep snow, frozen rivers, and bitter, bone-chilling winds. Soldiers stationed there wrote home not about glory, but about the relentless storms. One inscription even seems to commemorate a soldier who complained so much about the British frost that it ended up on his tombstone. For most city dwellers, home wasn't a fancy, sprawling domus, but a tiny apartment in an insula. These were the tenement blocks of the ancient world, often rising 5, 6, or even 7 stories high so rickety that emperors had to pass laws limiting their height. These insulae were often slapped together with timber, cheap brick, and an early form of concrete. Insulation wasn't even a concept. The walls were thin, offering little more than a suggestion of a barrier against the elements. Windows were often just holes in the wall. While glass windows did exist from around the 1st century AD, they were an expensive luxury, mostly found in the villas of the rich and important public buildings. For everyone else, windows were covered with wooden shutters, leather flaps, or animal hides, none of which did much to stop the constant drafts. The stone and brick acted like a cold sink, absorbing the winter chill and radiating it right back into the cramped, dark rooms. Life in an insula during winter was bleak. The upper floors, most exposed to the elements, were the cheapest and housed the poorest residents. There was no running water or sanitation up there. Water had to be hauled up rickety stairs, and waste was often just tossed out the window. Chimneys as we know them hadn't been invented, and while a ground floor shop might have a small hearth, the apartments above had no such thing. It was in these cold, smoky rooms that most Romans fought their yearly battle against the cold. This world was a universe away from the Roman elite. The wealthy lived in a spacious domus in the city, or a massive villa in the countryside, but their greatest weapon against the cold was an engineering marvel, the hypocaust. This was a sophisticated form of underfloor central heating that let the rich walk barefoot on warm marble floors, while just a few streets away, a family in an insula shivered and huddled together for warmth. This gap in living conditions shows the massive chasm in Roman society. For the rich, winter was an inconvenience. For everyone else, it was a threat to their very existence. When your home is a glorified stone tent, the clothes on your back become your fortress. For the ordinary Roman, surviving winter was all about the science of laryngeal system, developed not by fashionistas, but by the hard-won experience of millions. The foundation for everyone, from senator to slave, was the tunica. It was a simple, T-shaped garment of wool or linen, but in winter, it became a critical base layer. It was common to wear 2 or even 3 tunics to trap insulating layers of air against the bodia, personal microclimate against the harsh world. Over the tunics came the real shield. The cloak, these weren't decorative. They were heavy, practical, and built for warmth. A common choice was the pianula, a heavy, hooded, poncho-like cloak made of thick wool. The wool was often full of natural lanolin, making it water-resistant, and when you pulled that hood up, you were inside your own personal shelter. Soldiers and travelers often preferred the sagum. This was a large, rectangular blanket of thick, coarse wool, fastened at the shoulder with a brooch called a fibula. Its genius was its versatility. By day, it was a warm cloak that didn't restrict a soldier's arms. By night, it became his bedroll, a vital layer of insulation against the frozen ground. For a soldier in Germania, his sagum was his most trusted piece of gear. But perhaps the most telling adaptation was the slow, reluctant adoption of a garment Romans had long despised, braca or trousers. To a traditional Roman, trousers were for barbarians. A proper Roman man was expected to brave the cold with bare legs as a sign of his toughness. But ideology offers little warmth in a blizzard. Driven by pure necessity, Roman soldiers on the frigid frontiers started wearing the practical pants of the people they'd conquered. At first, it was probably an unofficial policy, but over time, the logic became undeniable. We see them on monuments like Trajan's Column, worn by auxiliary troops, and eventually, even citizen legionaries gave in. It was a quiet admission that when it came to surviving a northern winter, the barbarians had it right. This practicality went all the way to their feet. The classic Roman soldier wore open-toed caligae sandals, which are basically an invitation for frostbite in the snow. In winter, they swapped them for calce, fully enclosed leather shoes, ancient winter boots. And what did they wear inside? The discovery of woolen socks, known as adoans, at forts like Vindolanda, provides the hilarious and relatable answer. Soldiers were even writing home asking their families to send new socks. The fashion crime of socks with sandals. It just might be a Roman invention, born from the desperate need to keep their feet from freezing. Dressing in layers was step one, but to survive the long, dark nights, Romans needed fire. In the drafty, flimsy insulae, this was a huge and often deadly challenge. With no fireplaces or chimneys, most people relied on one thing: the brazier. A brazier, or faculus, was a portable container, usually bronze or terracotta, made to hold burning charcoal. A family would get hot coals from a public vendor, put them in the brazier, and huddle around its glow. It was the ancient version of a space heater, a tiny island of warmth in an ocean of cold. But this comfort came with massive risks. First, there was fire. Imagine an open container of embers in a cramped room in a wooden building. A stray spark or a clumsy trip could be catastrophic. In a city like Rome, a small fire could become an inferno. As it did during the Great Fire of 64 AD, even more sinister was the silent killer. Carbon monoxide, burning charcoal in a poorly ventilated space, is a recipe for disaster. The gas is colorless and odorless, and the initial symptoms, headache, drowsiness, are deceptive. A family might just drift off to sleep from the cozy warmth and never wake up. The historian Cassius Dio even records that the Emperor Jovian was found dead in his tent in 364 AD, likely asphyxiated by a charcoal brazier. This created a terrible choice. To use the brazier safely, you needed ventilation, but opening the shutters meant letting all the precious heat escape. Every night was a life-or-death gamble, freeze or suffocate. And the charcoal itself wasn't free, a constant drain on a poor family's budget. Staying warm was dangerous, expensive, and precarious. When the cold outside is relentless and the heat inside is perilous, the last line of defense is your own body. The Romans understood that staying warm started from within. Calories were fuel, and a warm meal was a vital deposit into the body's furnace. The winter diet was built around hearty, calorie-dense foods. The undisputed champion of the Roman winter menu was pulse, often dismissed as a simple porridge. Pulse was a thick, sustaining gruel of boiled grains like wheat or barley, and it was the backbone of the Roman diet. It could be enriched with cheese, lentils, beans, or scraps of meat to turn it into a complete warming meal, the ancient equivalent of a thick stew. Soups and dense bread were also winter staples. For a drink, heated wine, sometimes spiced, was a common way to chase away the chill. Beyond food, the second pillar of survival was community. In an era without personal insulation, collective warmth was a powerful tool. Huddling was a real strategy. A small apartment shared by an entire family got significantly warmer simply from the combined body heat of its occupants. This idea of communal warmth found its grandest expression in one of Rome's most famous institutions, the public baths or thermae. While the rich had private heated baths, the great public ones were accessible to almost everyone, often for a tiny fee or even for free. In winter, the baths weren't just for getting clean, they were a sanctuary from the cold. A trip to the baths was a chance to escape the frigid, smoky apartment and experience deep, luxurious warmth. Here, an ordinary citizen could enjoy the same hypo-cost heating as the elite. They would move through rooms of varying temperatures, culminating in the caldarium, or hot room, a steamy, sauna-like space heated by an underfloor furnace. People could soak for hours in hot pools, letting the radiant heat seep into their bones. For the poor, a trip to the baths was a lifeline or place to thaw out, socialize, and feel human again before facing the cold. It was the one place where Roman society, in its own way, shared the warmth. If you find this glimpse into the harsh realities of Roman life fascinating, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It tells the algorithm you appreciate these kinds of stories and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive. And let us know in the comments what S1 modern convenience you could unsurvive a winter without. For the masses, winter was a raw physical struggle. But for the Roman 1%, it was a totally different story. For the fabulously wealthy, winter wasn't a threat. It was an inconvenience they could simply engineer away. Their secret weapon was the hypocaust central heating system, so advanced it was astonishing. Hypocaust means heat from below, and that's exactly how it worked. The process began at an outdoor furnace, the prefurnium, where slaves constantly fed a massive fire. This superheated air and smoke wasn't piped into the rooms. Instead, it was channeled into a hollow space beneath the floor. The floor, or suspensura, was raised up on a forest of short pillars called pilae, creating a crawl space for the hot air to circulate. The result was a floor that was luxuriously warm to the touch, but it didn't stop there. To create an even more pervasive warmth, the Romans also embedded hollow tiles, or tubuli, inside the walls. The hot air would flow up through these wall flues. Before venting out a roof outlet, this turned the walls themselves into giant smoke-free radiators, warming the room with gentle, radiant heat. The luxury this provided was immense. While ordinary people huddled around dangerous braziers, a wealthy Roman could be reclining in a spacious villa, the air fresh and clean, enjoying a perfect temperature radiating from the floor and walls. It was the pinnacle of ancient comfort. Of course, this came at a staggering cost. While this kind of underfloor heating was not exclusively Roman, with similar systems in other parts of the world, like Korea and later in the Byzantine and Islamic worlds, it largely vanished from Western Europe after the fall of Rome and wouldn't be seen again on a wide scale for centuries. For the Roman elite, the hypocaust drew a clear, warm line between them and the cold, struggling masses. In the end, there were two Roman empires during winter. There was the Rome of the shivering masses in drafty apartments, where survival depended on a thick wool cloak and the dangerous glow of a brazier. And then there was the Rome of the privileged few, where the silent, invisible heat of the hypocaust made winter nothing more than a pretty scene outside a warm window. The story of how Romans survived the cold is a story of incredible social division and equally incredible ingenuity. For the 99%, it was about the art of the practical, clever layering, the sanctuary of the public baths, a warm bowl of porridge, and a daily gamble with fire. It was a testament to the resilience of ordinary people using low-tech strategies to endure a season that was actively trying to kill them. The next time you walk into a warm building on a cold day, or just turn up your thermostat, spare a thought for that Roman family huddled in the smoky dark, or the soldier on Hadrian's wall wrapping his cloak tighter against the gale. Their story is a powerful reminder that for most of human history, comfort wasn't a given. Warmth was a hard-won prize, and not freezing to death was a true art form.